Welcome back everyone. Today we will be discussing the Yeezy 350 Mono Ice once again. Specifically, we will be discussing whether you should sell or hold the Yeezy 350 Mono Ice and why that is. To preface this, if you guys enjoy these types of videos regarding the market, reselling, and even info on how to acquire these limited products, be sure to subscribe and enable post notifications just so you're always 100% updated. Furthermore, for more urgent updates like shock drops, raffles, Sitelists, etc., follow my Twitter KeithAdam10 and personals for you. This way you're always in the loop 24/7 whenever there is a restock or drop. For those who don't know, the Yeezy 350 Mono Ice drops on June 18th, tomorrow or today technically, if you happen to be watching this on the East Coast like myself. If you have not already, be sure to check out my How to Cop guide on these if you're watching this before the drop, of course, but otherwise, congrats on the cop, and let's continue. In order to determine if the Yeezy 350 Mono Ice will be a fruitful hold, we will cover an estimated range of what the sneaker will settle at after the drop and when shipments come in, essentially the pairs going into circulation, whether they're expected to increase post-drop or hypothetically decrease, along with how much specifically over specific periods of time, and finally, what type of margin are we looking at for these in terms of holding. Not the retail to resell initial margin, but rather just the hold margin over X period of time. Basically, are these actually going to be worth your time, even if they do go up? So, kicking it off, let's discuss the estimated range that these should be settling at right after the drop. Since this is not a Nike item, I do not have the exact stock unfortunately, but I'm pretty confident that it'll be somewhat close to the prior Ash 350s, the Ash Blue and the Ash Stone for example, since those were regional as well. These are a regional Yeezy as well, so although I can't confirm it, it is very likely that each of these colorways will be more limited than your typical 350 by a notable fraction, which is definitely a good thing in terms of resale. The retailers themselves, such as foot sites, are receiving less stock than usual, so proportionally, it is definitely not looking like these are a massive GR at least, compared to prior 350s that release worldwide. That's not to say that there isn't a lot of stock, it's still a Yeezy 350 at the end of the day, but definitely more limited than most of them. Evidently, demand on these is very high based off the current sale volume and how well pre-sale is holding up for all sizes right before the drop, not just those under 8. In fact, I'd even say there is more demand for this colorway in comparison to the Stone and Blue Ash 350s that we saw not too long ago, likely because they're much more universal. Overall, like I mentioned in the How to Cop guide, if you have no tax, I'd suggest going for all sizes, expecting a poor margin on sizes above 8 and a decent margin on those under 8. If you do have tax on the other hand, then I'd suggest focusing only on sizes under 8 and still expecting a subpar margin. But regardless, it's still easy money to be made all around. Small profit definitely does add up. So now, regarding a specific range though, since we are less than a day out from the drop, just a few hours in fact away from the drop as of me recording this, we have already experienced the vast majority of the decline in price from pre-sellers, especially after the Flex app reservations confirmations went out this evening, and I don't really expect it to change anymore up until the drop actually occurs and once it goes out of stock. So they are currently sitting at around $328 on average between sizes 4 to 13, and this does not include size 12.5 because I do believe that would throw the number way off, obviously, if you check the price right now. So post-drop, we often experience what I like to refer to as the impulsivity effect. Most of you should know this by now. Sneaker drops specifically impact human impulsiveness significantly after an individual fails to acquire that desired product due to insufficient supply and too much demand. Therefore, on average, we normally see about a 10% increase of the pre-drop prices post-drop. This isn't always the case, but majority of the time it is. Almost always we discuss this to be the case, but this time I actually don't believe we'll be seeing that 10% increase post-drop, unfortunately, as I do feel that current pre-sale prices that we're seeing right now are pretty justified based on how the prior regional Yeezys we saw performed. So again, they are currently sitting at around $328 on average between sizes 4 to 13, and this does not include the size 12.5. Now, if that was the case, if we were to hypothetically see that 10% increase, which I'm not expecting, that would lead prices to hover around $361 on average, meaning some of the base size would be just shy of $400. And unfortunately, I don't believe that to be the case for these, given the state of how most most 350s have been reacting post-drop, even with slightly more limited stock. Although the demand is there for these and the stock won't be too high, I do feel our current prices do justify them quite well already. I do not expect prices to dip post-drop. If anything, perhaps a little mild increase, nothing very notable though. It should stay around what it is right now. So now let's discuss what prices will look like when shipments go out in that 1 to 2 week range. So during this period, the vast majority of pairs will be going into circulation, considering the stock should be quite high on these, being a Yeezy 350. Even if not the most heavily stocked 350s, this will still have a notable effect at the end of the day, but nothing to concern over. I am pretty confident that these will still be profitable. So in this 1 to 2 week range, we normally see a decrease of about 10 to 15%. When it comes to these specifically, I would definitely side a little closer towards the higher end for these, or at least closer to the middle at 13%. The reason is because I do believe these prices are already quite high, even without an impulsivity effect. Again, although not the most heavily stocked 350, they still are a Yeezy 350 in general, and there will be a massive amount in circulation regardless. It's inevitable. This 13% decrease will then leave us with a settling average price of $285 for sizes 4 to 13, not including 12.5 again. Therefore, you can expect sizes under 8 to still hover at or just slightly above $300 even after the shipments go out, aka still profit with or without tax, and sizes above 8 at just below $285, perhaps in the $270 to $280 range, allowing for just about lunch money profit if you don't have tax in your state, and definitely not a great margin unfortunately, but it's still money at the end of the day. I know a lot of you guys who might be brick sellers out there. Me personally, I love to indulge in brick selling, take my easy money, so I'll be going for those big sizes too. But now that the average price ranges at those points in time are evident, let's discuss whether they're expected to increase post-drop or even hypothetically decrease, along with how much specifically over specific periods of time. So traditionally, Yeezys with high demand that have decent resale already always tend to rise, at least in the small base sizes. The only time this isn't the case is when they're overbought or overvalued. We saw this on the Yeezy 350 Frozen Yellow, for example. Comparing these to the prior Ash 350s again though, those actually did start to increase by a very small amount, but this unfortunately did not last very long until they did end up plateauing. That colorway may have had around the same stock as these, but based on the current sale volume and bid support compared to what those had initially, it is quite evident that these mono ice have much more demand than those. Examining a colorway with a very similar aesthetic and high demand just like these, we have the Yeezy 350 Cloud White. Although these did drop in late 2019, the increase was still pretty consistent and at a relatively decent pace, specifically for sizes under 8. I always stress to you guys that the demand plays a more important factor than stock, and these both share that same attribute of very high demand for a 350, along with a similar aesthetic too. Furthermore, it's also worth noting that these mono ice are not a major GR compared to the majority of 350s like I've been stressing. High stock, yes. For a 350 though, slightly lower than average, which is only a good thing of course. I certainly do believe that these will be increasing at the end of the day, and I don't think it'll take longer than several months to start seeing it occur in sizes under 8 at least. Now, in terms of the margin, will these actually be worth your time? Well, based off the prior example with the Cloud White I have shown and I've compared these two, I really do think that holding sizes under 8 or at least under 7 will be worth your time. In terms of the larger sizes, while I do believe they'll go up, I do not exactly think that they'll be the optimal hold, especially compared to smaller sizes. So if these do end up settling in the low 300 range after the shipments go out, and they potentially end up reaching 550 or so within 1 to 1.5 years, that's already around a 40 to 45% ROI. Normally, we'd consider that about a 5 out of 10 hold, around average, which is still pretty good. We consider average good. However, I do still feel that these have more potential to continue increasing, just like those Cloud 350s did, potentially bringing them to the low to mid 600 range later on, and maybe even touching to 700 within 2 years or so. For that reason, I'd give give base sizes, being sizes 7 and under, a 7 out of 10 hold value, which definitely is pretty good, and that is above average. On the other hand though, I'd give these sizes above 8 a 4 out of 10 hold, unfortunately, which is below average, with sizes 7 and 7.5 falling somewhere in between. I'll be holding all sizes 7 and under for these, and I will be quick selling the larger sizes and just taking my lunch money on those. Keep in mind, you should really only go for these larger ones if you do have no tax in your state and you're still okay with a poor margin, and that's me, for example. I'm okay with that. In conclusion, all sizes should increase in value, especially sizes under 7, but I will only be holding those sizes under 7 as I don't feel the larger ones will really be worth my time. There's other fish in the sea. One note that's out of my control though, and this is for all Yeezys, we always have this risk that Kanye could say fuck it and restock whenever he wants. This is an undeniable risk, unfortunately, when it comes to Adidas items that we don't have to deal with when it comes to Nike items. It definitely does suck, but I think I'll take the risk on these. And just a quick note that I always like to mention, for those who do intend on holding but have limited capital, you should never hold anything if you don't have sufficient capital to go for as many drops as possible at your full potential without holding back. If you do need money to go for all drops, sell these right after the drop while the prices are still high before they drop when more are in circulation. But anyway, that will conclude it for today. Feel free to leave a like if you enjoyed, or perhaps if you learned a thing or two. Also, please leave in the comments down below what you guys are personally doing with your pairs, because this is just a discussion at the end of the day. I can't predict the future. This is just my personal analysis based off the data I did examine. Subscribe and enable post notifications just to stay 100% updated on all hype releases. Also, feel free to check out the links in the description below for reliable, fast residential proxies and pre-verified Nike sneakers or Adidas accounts. Also, feel free to follow Endurance's Twitter for updates on restocks or key giveaways, and the same goes for Gargantua if you want to keep up with the progress or free beta key drops. Last but not least, make sure to follow Keith Adam 10 and Personals for You so you guys stay updated on all urgent info like I was discussing today. With that though, I will see you guys later. Have a fantastic rest of your day.